In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how we can create this room using images created inside of Photoshop. So we'll look at how to set up an image-based shader network. We'll start by giving a material to the object. And in this case, I don't have any materials created so far for our room. So I'm going to apply a material across the whole thing. So I'm just going to go favorite and go to Blinn. And so I've got a new Blinn material. This is going to be for the whole room. I could divide up each of the different parts of the room into different materials, but I'm going to be happy with just the one material in this case. So Blinn, and now I'm going to go into the hyper shader and bring up that room Blinn, like so, and there it is. So the first thing I'm going to look at is going to create a connection to the color. So we'll go into the color by clicking on this little check, which will open up the create render nodes, and we can go to file and link a file into it. So if I go into the file node now, inside my property editor, I can see image name, and this is where I need to load in my image that I've created. So just like we created in the previous tutorial, we created this texture and inside of Photoshop, and so we load that up inside of here now. And I'll just close that down so we can see what's going on in this space. So the texture hasn't loaded yet because we haven't got textures turned on. So as soon as I turn textures on, we can see that texture loads up. And I can see an issue already sort of arised. So with my texture, there's just a little bit too much space that I've left inside that edge there. So I probably need to clean that up. But besides that, things are looking pretty good. So at the moment, we've just got Specular turned on for everything. So everything looks super shiny. There's no change in the specular color in different areas, where in reality, the specular would be on smooth areas and also wet areas. So very shiny areas will have high specular, where dull areas will have no specular. So let's look at creating a specular map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize Photoshop to do that. And then I'll also show you a method where we can do it straight inside the hypershader. And yeah, I can even see that image issue down the bottom here. So that's part of my room. So my walls, I should say. So inside my walls, I'm just going to fix that by hopefully just being able to move the texture down a bit, although that's going to cause some issues. Yep. So what I might do is just open this up by drawing over the top of it in white, which you can't see because of this is there as well. And my overlays, the ones on the wall, which would be this one here. Yep, that just needs to come down a bit. Like so. That looks good. And there's also an issue on the side there. just move that over, just make sure it's not affecting the other side, which it isn't, which it's all good. And just make sure snapping's turned off, because I think it's just snapping a little bit, like so. And yep, I'm happy with that. I might go in and add some detail up the top here. So this is another good reason why you want to use non-destructive methods, and you also want to retain your working file, so you can quickly just go in and edit some stuff without any too much problems. All right, so that's better. So now I've fixed up those issues. So let's save that, and I'll save the Photoshop file first. Save, and then I'll save the image inside here, which is TIFF, and save over the original. Make sure layers isn't turned on, because we don't want that extra size. And now if I come back into my image, I can go reload. All right, so there it's loaded up the new image, and the seam's gone, and everything's looking hunky-dory. All right, so let's go back and work on that specular. So the idea of specular is that what we want to create a specular map, which is the shiny reflective, and we also want to make a bump map. So an easy way to create the grayscale versions of these is just going into the channels and having a look at the different channels. And that will give you an indication of 3 different options straight up off the bat. And the blue for me looks good because there's quite a contrast on the wall, especially around the leaks down the bottom. So we probably want some more specular in the leaks up the top, and also on just some edging of these bricks, or not bricks, the plaster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this grayscale version of my scene and work with this within a new file. So to do that, I'm going to select the green and then go back into my layers, Command A to select all, and then if I hit Shift Command C, it will copy all layers. If I create a new layer now, so Command N, and paste that in, I get the black and white version. So you can see it's a grey scale image, which is going to be fine. But if I wanted to turn it to a RGB image again, I can come up to mode, and I think I'll do that just to keep things consistent, and flatten it out. And so now I've got all the channels in there as well. So in editing this specular, what I'm going to do is I'll just create a duplicate, so I've got that. Inside here, we can use non-destructive method using the adjustments tab, window adjustments, just in case you haven't sort of set it up. And I can use the levels, so click on the levels, and with the level sliders I can change where the black value is. So the pixels that are black are in this line here, where the pixels that are white in here, and the midtones are through here. So if I drag this closer to the white, then everything becomes, so all these pixels here are now black, and same with the white if I move that down. So then I can change where the intensity is. So that's looking okay. However, I want it inverted, and yeah, maybe I'll just come down to the image here, and Command I is going to invert, and then I'm going to readjust. because remember I was saying I want the specular in the watery bits. So they're going to be those bits there, and those bits there. That looks pretty good to me. And go okay. The roof I'm not too happy with, so I'm going to create a new layer. Grab that, open that up, and give it its own alterations. So, and this is probably good for the floor as well, like so. So in that case, what it will do, like so. Now the important thing here is that our layer adjustment properties are flowing throughout our scene. So they're affecting what's underneath as well. So this area here. So if I turn that off, you can see it's got that same one adjustment. So when I change it, it's going all the way through, which I don't want. So I just want this layer adjustment to affect what's underneath it. So in that case, I click on this icon here, and now it's just affecting the layer there, and then I can turn this guy on as well. So it's just affecting there. So that looks pretty good, and I'm going to be happy with that. And so now I'll save this as a separate image. So save image as, and yeah, might as well save it as a Photoshop image as well. And I'll save that into here, room 2 spec. Like so. And also save as a TIFF inside source images without layers. I'm going to utilize a filter. Alright, so I think I may need to, I'll save this as bump. And I'm going to mode flatten the image, and then come up into filter 3D, and I can create a normal map from here as well. So that's looking good, except for want it to invert. Don't worry about the corners. It's more about these details in here and that detail there. So detail scale, we don't really need it to be that pushed out. So we just need a little bit of detail. That looks pretty good. So this section here is probably the opposite to what we want. We want that up there, but the others we want it to be out. So we could manipulate that and do those separately, but in saving time I won't worry. So yeah, I'll have the green as decay then, as if it's eating into the walls. Looks good. So save that as a normal in source images. So let's move back into Maya, and what I'm going to do, I've just brought up two windows side by side, but I'm just going to clear them out so I can work with just these guys. So far we've put the texture for the room, the image. So I'm just going to deselect that so we can see the other first of all, I'm going to go into my specular color and load up a file for specular. So source images, room spec, open that up. And you can see now that specular working, especially on the water areas, the sort of damp areas, where everything else is sort of matte. So that's how subtle it is. And you can see it on the floor as well. We're going to add the bump. In this case, we're going to use the normal. So add the bump, go into the file. So the good thing about this is that it automatically puts this bump node into it as soon as you click on the bump. And so inside here, we can go into file name, and I'm just going to grab that normal, like so. And as you can see in the viewpoint 2.0, it goes a little crazy. So first of all, I need to tell it that it's a tangent space normal. So that's looking better. But you can even see that the viewpoint 2.0 has pushed it in the opposite direction to how we set it up inside of Photoshop. But that's okay, we've got this value that we can sort of change. So if I went -1, then we get this result. But 1's probably a little bit too high. So I'll just bring it down, something like that. Yep, I'm happy with that. So now all I need to do is add the color into again. So to do that, I'll just middle mouse, drag and drop the room TIFF, place it in, and now we've got all of them lined up. Now what I'm going to do is try some different sort of techniques in adjusting those the specular map. To do this, first of all, I'm going to grab, let me just organize the space a little bit better. We'll go saved layouts, hypershader and perspective, bring them up like so, and if we go into specular, and if I click on my specular, under effects, we've got this color remap. So if I click on that, I then plug in a RGB to HSV node from the out color, and then the out HSV goes into the U and V coordinates of this ramp. So what's cool about this is if I load solo the texture, like so. So there's my texture. I can now affect this texture depending on how I manipulate this ramp. So for instance, I could invert it like so, or I can make things a bit darker and whatnot. And I can really play around how things are working here. What this means is we can also take color and do the same thing. So I've got my color remap, and I'm going to rearrange this now. So instead of the normal, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of my specular, and so then I've got this remap, but I'm going to change the color straight into color, and I'm going to take this remap and plug it straight into the specular color, like so. So now I can use, let's solo that so we can see what's going on. I can use the image itself to define where I want the specular to be and where I don't want it to be. So I'm just going to make something pretty extreme, like so, and see how that's looking. The scene, I've just redone the bump map, and I've again used the same image, but I've used the effects color remap insert, which has added the ramp, and then using the ramp to affect where I want the bump values. So the bump values are really low, but the ramp gives you that extra control, so you can control where the elements are. So in this case, I want to let's just bring up the value so we can sort of see it happening. And so what I want to do is indicate where I want the indentations are and where I don't want the indentations. So if we look around, so we want not the cracks to be indented, so we need to add it that way. And then we can also, let's just isolate it so we can see what's going on. We can also up the contrast by bringing it closer in towards the white, and so forth. So then when we see those indentations, we can see them working well on the walls. So that concludes creating a shader using image-based textures.